Such dreadful scenes speak powerfully to the passions. They petrify the mind with horror, congeal the blood within our veins, and excite the human bosom with irresistible but undefinable emotions. During the trial of Levi Weeks, one of the counsel to the defense said this to describe the feeling that this case provoked in the hearts of many. A scandalous affair, a wealthy man, eyewitness accounts, and a woman found dead in a well. The trial of Levi Weeks is important because it tested the United States legal system, it heavily influenced art and literature, and it created public outcry about the court system. It was December 22nd, 1799, when a woman by the name of Julielma Sands disappeared. On January 2nd, 1800, her body was found in the Manhattan well. Julielma, or Elma as called by the witnesses, lived with her cousins and had developed a relationship with a man who had been boarding with them named Levi Weeks. Levi had a good reputation and a wealthy family. 2 days after she left, the muff she was wearing had been found by a boy in the Manhattan well, and 9 days after that, her body was found in that same well. Elma's cousins testified that Elma and Levi had a plan to get married in secret and thought she had left with Levi to do just that. However, they could not say with 100% certainty that it was Levi she left with. According to them, she was happier than usual when she left that night. After Elma's 8 o'clock departure, Levi came back to the house around 10, looking, quote, pale and much agitated, end quote. Multiple testimonies show probability that Levi used his brother's sleigh, while others state that Elma screamed in the night around 9 o'clock. However, there were too many discrepancies and uncertainties to create a precise story. His brother, Urza Weeks, and his wife, Elizabeth Weeks, testified that at the time of the murder, Levi was at their house, giving Levi an alibi. With the help of Urza, Levi was very well defended by Aaron Burr, Alexander Hamilton, and Henry Brockholst Livingston, who later became a judge of the Supreme Court. The trial took place on March 31st and April 1st, and after 2 days, 55 witnesses, and 5 minutes of deliberation, the trial ended with the verdict of not guilty. This case tested the United States legal system in a few ways. The trial of Levi Weeks is the first murder trial in the United States for which there is a formal record. Today, trial transcripts are common and can be found on government websites that are accessible to the public. The trial also brought to light the importance of qualified medical examiners. Those who were questioned about the body came to various conclusions, making the cause of death appear ambiguous. Although this is not the first trial for the United States, the murder was upsetting to many people, so it tested the right to a fair trial when emotions run rampant. The right to an unbiased jury of peers was upheld when a few Quakers on the jury were excused for religious reasons. Another example of the integrity of the court during this case is the verdict. Despite strong public opinions, the jury and judges looked only at the evidence and summed up accordingly. This trial heavily influenced art and literature. In a novel by Norman Fay called Norman Leslie, which was published in 1833, the trial is referenced under various false names. The trial is often referenced in works about Aaron Burr and/or Alexander Hamilton, because they worked together on this case just a couple years before Hamilton was killed in a duel with Burr. In the musical Hamilton by Lin-Manuel Miranda, the trial is briefly mentioned in the Act II opening song, Non-Stop. It's a bit of a tongue twister and it moves a little fast, but in the song, Alexander Hamilton, played by Lin-Manuel Miranda, says, "Gentlemen of the jury, I'm curious, bear with me. Are you aware that we're making history? This is the first murder trial of our brand new nation. the liberty behind deliberation. I intend to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt with my assistant counsel. Then Aaron Burr interrupts Hamilton, saying, "Co-counsel, Hamilton, sit down. Our client Levi Weeks is innocent. Call your first witness. That's all you had to say." This moment is similar to a moment present in another work called The Life and Times of Aaron Burr by James Parton. On page 184, when Alexander Hamilton had, quote, addressed the jury with his usual fluent eloquence, end quote, Aaron Burr rose and stated the facts. It's also said that Burr grabbed 2 candelabra, held them towards one of the witnesses, and said, "Behold, the murderer, gentlemen." Although this narrative was later proven to be a myth, it had remained unchallenged for nearly a century. Artwork was made years after the trial of Aaron Burr in the dark courtroom holding 2 candelabra and using strategy to defend his client. This work can be found in the Library of Congress, and it's called Aaron Burr's Stratagem at the Weeks Trial. The fact that it's the first murder trial in America on record, coupled with the interesting team of defense, has helped this trial carve its own place in various media. The trial of Levi Weeks was the cause of much public outcry about the court system. The body was on display for the public to see. The body, days old, bruised, clothing torn, was kept in the house for 3 days before being moved to the street for a day for the public to observe. This greatly upset the public, who did not agree with the verdict of not guilty. In the preface of his transcript of the trial, William Coleman notes and criticizes 2 other transcripts of the trial, saying, quote, "I cannot help noticing 2 pamphlets which have already appeared, both pretending to exhibit a correct report of this trial," end quote. Coleman spends a decent amount of the preface calling out the other records of the trial as being biased or inaccurate. The conflicting transcripts that were released to the public is likely a source of public opinion and unrest. With his brother's help, Levi Weeks was able to hire the best lawyers of the time period. In his opening statement, the prosecutor, Cadwalader David Colden, even refers to those on the defense as, quote, "so vastly my superiors in learning, experience, and professional rank," end quote. This led many to the opinion that the defense was much more qualified than the prosecutor to an unfair degree. In the first volume of his book series, American State Trials, published in 1914, John D. Lawson states, quote, "It is safe to say that up to that period, no crime had ever produced in New York such an excitement as the murder of Miss Sands. For many years afterwards, it was a never-ending topic of conversation, and it is more or less talked about even to this day," end quote. After his trial, despite being acquitted, Levi Weeks was ostracized and had to leave New York because of it. Levi moved to Natchez, Mississippi, where he became well respected in his field. The People versus Levi Weeks is a case full of emotion that shook the people of New York but failed to shake the court. Full of confusion, conflicting stories, conflicting opinions, and what some may call questionable decisions, this case is significant. One can research and argue about the conditions under which decisions were made, but regardless of the outcome, this trial had a lasting impact. The trial of Levi Weeks versus the People for the Manhattan Well murder is an important trial.